Dr. Heidi Horsley, Executive Director of the Open to Hope Foundation, and we are talking today with Khris Ford, the founder of My Healing Place in Austin, Texas, and author of the recently released DVD, Helping Children Grieve. Hi, Khris.
Hi.
Our first topic today is going to be using the expressive arts for children's grief work. Khris, in what setting are you doing work with grieving children?
At My Healing Place, we work with children ages 3 through 18 who have experienced a significant or traumatic loss of any kind, sometimes in group settings, sometimes in individual.
What do you mean when you say you use expressive arts to work with children in grief? Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. We use art, we use music, we use movement, we use sound. As a way of helping children draw from a place besides the cognitive part of the brain where words are required. So much of children's experience in grief is not something that necessarily has words.
What makes the expressive arts a particularly good modality for working with grieving children?
The other reason is that, and this is true for adults too, is that so much of what is experienced in a loss is not experienced in the cognitive part of the brain. It's experienced in the sensory part of the brain, which we draw from in the expressive arts so much. The other piece is that children are so physical in their grief, and that when we are doing these sensate sort of work through the expressive arts, it allows them to use that physical sense of their experience.
What advice or wisdom can you offer others about this kind of work with children?
Well, the first one is you've got to get comfortable with this kind of work with yourself first.
I love that. I love that. Great advice.
If you cannot sit down and draw and move and use sound with your own stuff and get comfortable with that, then children are going to know it. The second thing, which I think is just as key, is that we must trust this process. We have to trust that children know what it is they need, and they know really how to get there. They just need some help. They need to be guided. So we have to trust that process, that it is unfolding in the child's timing, and not get impatient with it. I think sometimes verbally we may hear shifts perhaps more quickly, but when we're working with the arts, sometimes it takes some time to see that.
I'd like to thank Khris Ford today and ask you, Khris, one last question. Do you have any advice for families that have had a loss about how to help their children through this process? And I know you've touched on a lot of that today, but what one quick bit of advice would you have?
As a family, these kinds of activities can be done together. You know, encourage your children, sit down together and draw a picture together, or listen to music. Think about how you experience that relationship in terms of expressive arts. Don't be afraid to do that as a family.
Very good. Thank you so much, Khris.
Thank you.